They said her food tasted like home, warm, spicy, comforting. They said she never talked much, only smiled and nodded as she served. They said the place had no signboard, yet it was always full. But one thing no one said out loud, until it was too late, was that the woman behind the counter had been buried 3 years ago. Her name was Nkechi, and every night she opened her kitchen, the city unknowingly dined with the dead. And the story begins. Enugu was a busy city, kiki horns, buses shouting, New Haven, Garki, Ogbede. The air smelled of fried plantain, red dust, and engine smoke. People were always rushing to work, to hustle, to survive. So when a new restaurant opened quietly at the edge of coal camp, no one really noticed. There was no opening ceremony, no music, no flyers, just a small building with brown walls, a black zinc roof, and a wooden door that creaked like a whisper. The first people who ate there said the food was unbelievable. The agusi soup? Like my late mother's own. Her okpa? Soft like sponge, sweet like sundae. No menu, no waiter, just one woman, always wearing white. That woman was Nkechi, petite, smooth dark skin, always barefoot, always with that soft, strange smile, like she knew something no one else knew. She never said much, just nodded, served your food, and went back into the kitchen. People liked the mystery, the food, the calm. The price was cheap, too. Soon, workers from nearby shops started sneaking out during lunch to eat there. One man, Obina, a mechanic, even said, I'd dream of that woman food every night. Wouldn't she they put inside Seth? They laughed. They didn't know the answer, not yet. But the city was about to find out, because someone was watching that restaurant, and someone had noticed something strange, like how the power never blinked, or how smoke came out from the back, even when there was no fire, or how no one ever saw Nkechi enter or leave the building. Ever. Gossip. One afternoon, a popular food vlogger named Adawara Flames posted a video. Guys, I just discovered this hidden gem in Enugu. No name, no noise, just one woman cooking heaven on a plate. You need to taste this. The views skyrocketed. People began tagging friends. Let's go! Where is this place? That okra soup looks like jazz. Every day, more people crowded the tiny restaurant, but nobody ever asked questions, even when they noticed that Nkechi never aged, even when they realized she always wore the same white gown, every single day. Even when someone joked, I'll be this woman a ghost, and everyone laughed. Too hard. They didn't care, until people started getting sick. It started with Chisom, a tailor who worked across the street. He fainted at work 3 days after eating there. Then Nduka, a bus driver, began speaking in tongues no one understood. And he wasn't Pentecostal. One woman said her little boy began drawing a black-faced lady with fire in her hands every single day after they visited. Still, people kept coming. Addiction is strange. When something tastes too good to be true, some people don't want to know the truth. Meanwhile, Nkechi never smiled any wider. She served quietly, politely, perfectly, but something was cooking deeper than stew inside that kitchen, and not everyone was eating it with a clean soul. One evening, Toby, a university student and part-time delivery boy, came to the restaurant to drop off bread for a woman named Mama Nkechi. He'd never been inside before. As he walked in, the first thing he noticed was the smell. Rich, thick, like palm oil mixed with something older. He dropped the bag and turned to leave. Then he heard it. Voices. But not just one. Several. All whispering at the same time. Fast, breathless. She's here. She's still here. She's cooking for them again. They're eating. Eating. Tobe froze. The voices weren't coming from outside. They weren't coming from a radio. They were coming from behind the kitchen curtain. And suddenly, they stopped, as if someone had clicked a switch. Then the curtain moved, and Nkechi stepped out, smiling that same quiet smile. She didn't say anything. She just picked up the bread and nodded. Toby blinked. The whispers were gone. Thank you, Ma, he stammered, backing out of the shop. As he stepped into the streetlight, he realized something. The floor behind her was wet, but it hadn't rained, and her shadow wasn't there. Rumors began to crawl through the neighborhood like rats in the gutter. People said the food tasted different on some nights, bittersweet, like memories. Others swore they saw faces in their soup bowls. One man, a barber, claimed he saw his dead sister's gold earrings in the stew pot. No one believed him until he collapsed at his shop 2 days later. His eyes were open wide, lips black, hands stiff. The doctor said it was cardiac arrest. His brother said it was the restaurant. At midnight, people walking past the shop said they could hear clanging spoons and boiling pots, even though the doors were locked and the lights off. A group of teenagers dared each other to touch the door after 10 p.m. Only 2 came back. The third, a boy named Somi, never made it home. His mother wailed the next morning in front of the restaurant, but Nkechi only came out, bowed slightly, and whispered, "He will not be hungry anymore." By now, the local community was divided. Some said she was using juju. Some said she was a witch. Some said, "Leave her alone. That woman feeds us like our mothers never did." And some, like Pastor Onyedika, started praying every night outside her shop. "Any spirit feeding the children of God, your pot must break." But the pots never broke. If anything, the aroma grew sweeter. There is a missing Okada boy. His name was Emeka, a cheerful 28-year-old Okada rider who always wore a red cap backward and played loud music from his bike. He was well known around New Layout, always offering free rides to elderly women and never missing Sunday Mass. One evening, just before closing time, Emeka told his friend Shima, "Make I go that new woman place sharp. I dey crave her ogbano soup. Be back soon." That was the last anyone saw him. His red bike was found the next morning, parked neatly outside the restaurant, helmet on the seat, keys still in the ignition, but Emeka was gone. The police were called. They searched everywhere, under the table, behind the fence, even inside the kitchen, but nothing. Nkechi stood still as they questioned her, calm, soft-spoken. "I don't remember seeing anyone like that last night," she said gently. "Maybe he left before I closed." The officers left with nothing, except a strange chill in their bones. One officer, Inspector Ikena, later confessed to his wife, "When I stepped into that kitchen, I felt like I walked into a grave, like something was watching me from inside the pots." Smoothed. That night, a boy sweeping the street near the restaurant said he heard banging sounds from inside, like someone was locked in a box, screaming. He ran home and locked his door. He told his mother. She slapped him and said, "Keep quiet. Do you want death to hear your voice?" But death was already listening, and it was hungry. 3 days after Emeka vanished, an old woman arrived at the restaurant. She wore a faded Ankara blouse and tied a wrapper printed with pictures of the Virgin Mary. Her hands shook as she walked, but her eyes were sharp, like razors hidden in soft yam. Her name was Mama Nnedi, and she had traveled all the way from Nsukka after seeing something online. A friend had sent her the viral video of a Dara Flames eating a goosey soup at the now famous restaurant. But Mama Nnedi wasn't watching the food. She was staring at the woman behind the counter. "Jisu, that face," she whispered. She packed her bag and came to Enugu by first light. She entered the restaurant around 4 p.m., just before the evening crowd. There at the counter stood the woman, calm, smiling, wearing white. Mama Nnedi gasped and clutched her chest. She reached into her wrapper and pulled out an old, burnt photograph. It was faded, but the face was still visible. She slammed it on the table. "This is my daughter," she shouted. The whole restaurant went silent. "This girl died 3 years ago in a gas fire. In Nsukka, we buried her ourselves, in a white coffin. Her name was Nkechi Ozuamina." The customers froze. Some dropped their spoons. Nkechi stood still. Then she laughed, softly, then louder and louder. The lights flickered. The air grew cold. The picture on the table suddenly caught fire and turned to ash without a flame. Mama Nnedi screamed and ran out. Nobody touched their food after that. But not everyone left. A small boy, around 10, walked up to the counter. His name was Ifeanyi. He looked at Nkechi and said in a quiet, innocent voice, "Auntie, are you a ghost?" Nkechi leaned down and whispered, "No, my dear. Ghosts are sad. I'm just hungry. 2 days after Mama Nettie's outburst, Ikenna, the same police inspector who felt the chill in Nkechi's kitchen, decided to investigate deeper. He didn't tell his boss. He didn't file a report. Something had stirred in his spirit. That old woman's scream, the burnt photo, the whispers that still haunted his sleep. So he went to Nsukka, to the address Mama Nettie had scribbled onto a handkerchief in her panic. The compound was empty. The neighbors said Mama Nettie had moved to her sister's place after the fire. Yes, there was a girl named Nkechi. Yes, she ran a food joint. Yes, she was good. Very good. Too good. Then came the explosion. A leaky gas cylinder. The fire spread fast. Nothing left but bones and ash. They said they buried what they could find behind Odenigbo Market, where she used to serve lunch. Ikenna went there that evening. A small fenced patch behind the bush path, unmarked, silent, forgotten. But as he stepped near the center of the grave, his feet froze. The soil was cold, too cold. And there, in the middle of the ground, was something sticking out. Black, curled, like burnt fabric. He reached down with trembling hands and pulled it free. It was a partially burned restaurant apron with a tag on the inside that read, N. Ozoamina. His mouth dried. Suddenly, he heard it. A whisper. She never left. She only changed cities. He turned, but no one was there. Just the wind and the scent of smoke. That night, he returned to Enugu with the apron in a plastic bag. He knew what he had to do next. He had to stop that restaurant. But first, he needed proof that she was dead. Pastor Onyedika was not an ordinary man. People called him Oluwaje, the one who sees blood, because of the way he could walk into a place and immediately feel if death had touched it. For weeks he had stood outside Nkechi's restaurant with his Bible, praying aloud, commanding any demon to flee. But every night the smell of smoke grew thicker, and sometimes he saw shadows behind the curtain, moving without bodies. He wasn't afraid, not until that Thursday night. That night he walked in boldly. "Good evening," he greeted. "I would like to speak with you, madam." Nkechi appeared from the back, wiping her hands. Same gown, same smile. "Would you like something to eat?" she asked sweetly. "No, just answers," he replied. He placed his Bible on the table, opened it to Psalm 91, and began to pray. At first, Nkechi only stood and watched. Then her smile faded. "Pastor," she said softly, "do you know what it feels like to burn?" He looked up. "What?" "To scream, to scratch, to beg, to die in your own kitchen, and still hear people say your food was the best in town." She took a step forward. The lights flickered. The pot on the stove began to boil without fire. And from the shadows behind her, smoke began to pour out. Thick, black, and alive. The room filled with heat. "I forgave them," she whispered, "but I was hungry. So I stayed." Pastor Onyedika opened his bottle of anointing oil and flung it. The smoke screamed. Nkechi screamed too, a high, burning sound that shook the windows. Then, everything went silent. The restaurant lights died. She was gone. But when Pastor Onyedika stepped outside, he saw her reflection still standing in the window, smiling behind the glass. And the next morning, the restaurant opened again, as if nothing happened, and the crowd, larger than ever. Inspector Ikenna had enough. He'd seen the grave. He'd held the burnt apron. He'd heard whispers in a place where no one was alive. Now, with Pastor Onyedika's story spreading like wildfire, he knew. Nkechi was not living. She couldn't be. But to close her down, he needed official proof. So, he did the unthinkable. He broke into the city's mortuary records archive. There, deep in the files labeled Nsukka March, 3 years ago, he found it. Name, Nkechi Ozomena. Age, 27. Cause of death, fire inhalation and third-degree burns. Body status, charred remains. Buried in Nsukka, behind Odenigbo Market. Date March 17th, stamped confirmed dead. Ikenna stood frozen, staring at the paper. He whispered, "Then who is running that kitchen?" The next morning, a citywide rumor exploded. The restaurant woman is a ghost. She died in Nsukka and came back. Even the police confirmed it. Crowds gathered. Some cursed the building. Some threw stones. Others, they still went in and ate. Like zombies, like addicts. Nkechi didn't say a word. She just kept cooking. The restaurant was never closed. No health agency dared enter, and those who tried either went missing or fell mysteriously ill. But Ikenna had a plan. He contacted Mama Nady and Pastor Onyedika. He sent messages to survivors of the fire. He gathered all the evidence, pictures, ashes, the apron, the death certificate. Then he called reporters, bloggers, and even Adaora Flames, the one who made the restaurant go viral. We're going there, tonight, all of us. We'll catch her, on camera, we'll make the world see. 10:13 p.m. The city watched. Everyone knew something terrible was about to happen, and someone, or something, would be exposed. The night was heavy with tension. The air in Cole Camp buzzed as people gathered in silence, clutching phones, torches, cameras. Inspector Ikenna stood near the entrance, flanked by Pastor Onyedika and Mama Nedy, her hands shaking as she clutched a rosary. Behind them, bloggers whispered into microphones. TikTokers whispered live updates. Street boys held planks, mothers held their children close. The restaurant sat still, like it always had. Light glowed softly through the windows. Inside, people were eating. At 11 p.m., Ikenna stepped forward. He gave one final nod and kicked the door open. "Nkechi Ozomena," he shouted, "by the authority of the living and the dead, your time is up." Gasps rang out as the crowd surged forward. There she stood, calm behind the counter, wearing white, smiling gently. The diners froze, spoons halfway to their mouths. Pastor Onyedika began to pray. Mama Nedy cried, "Nkechi, my daughter, you're dead, stop this." The floor began to rumble. Lights flickered. The food on the tables began to bubble, as if boiling from within. A dark, heavy smoke crawled out from the kitchen, thick and alive. Screams rang out. "Look," someone cried. A mirror on the far wall, previously unnoticed, was now glowing. And in it, Nkechi had no reflection, only fire. Then she moved, not walked, floated, past the tables, past the panic, to her mother. She stopped, just inches away. Her voice was soft, childlike, broken. "They let me die, Mama. I cried for help, but no one came. I only wanted to cook. I only wanted them to remember me." Mama Nedy collapsed to her knees, weeping. "Come home, Nkechi, come home, my daughter." Pastor Onyedika opened his Bible and shouted, "The dead shall not walk with the living. Spirit of fire, rest in peace." A wind smashed through the room. The mirror shattered. The lights exploded. And Nkechi screamed, not in pain, but like something being released. Her gown caught flame, but she did not burn. She vanished in the firelight, gone. In the silence that followed, the crowd entered the kitchen. What they saw made many faint. Human bones inside the freezer, names written in charcoal on the walls, a pot that still bubbled, without heat. They locked the restaurant that night, but even now, people say, at midnight, the door creaks open. If you smell pepper soup in the air, run. And in the back corner of the shop, one mirror remains unbroken. Sometimes, it smiles back. Moral of the story. Not every hand that serves food is human. Not every hunger is of the body. Be careful where you eat. Some kitchens cook for more than the living. Thanks for watching, and please like, share, and subscribe to Folktales by Chisom.